Have you ever wondered what a genius really looks like? Would you recognize her if she sat beside you on the bus or waited quietly at the back of a crowded classroom, scribbling invisible dreams into the margins of her notebook? Sometimes the brightest minds hide in plain sight, dressed not in confidence but in silence. And sometimes the person everyone underestimates is the very one who will turn the whole world upside down. This story isn't about the loudest voice in the room or the star student everyone expects to succeed. It's about a woman who spent half her life sacrificing her own dreams for others, who returned to university with nothing but a battered satchel and a lifetime's worth of unfinished hopes. She wore thrift store sweaters and sensible shoes. She didn't look like a math prodigy. But that's the thing about brilliance. It rarely announces itself. It waits. It watches. And then one day, it steps forward when no one expects it. This is the story of Maya Rivers, a woman who walked into her first advanced calculus class determined to remain invisible, and left with the power to change everything, for herself and for those who had quietly lost faith in second chances. But on her very first day, as she took a seat in the faded glow of room 302, she had no idea just how much her life, and the lives of everyone around her, were about to change. The sharp clang of the bell echoed through Harrington University's stone corridors as Maya Rivers paused at the threshold of the mathematics building. She took a deep breath and straightened her shoulders, feeling the ghost of old anxiety flutter in her stomach. All around her, students in hoodies and headphones rushed to their next classes, laughing, checking their phones, living lives that, at 36, felt impossibly far from hers. Maya pressed a palm to the cracked leather of her satchel, a small talisman against uncertainty, and climbed the steps. The past 15 years had taken her far from where she'd once dreamed, through endless shifts at the textile factory, late nights at the kitchen table helping her little brother with homework, and the slow, quiet heartbreak of putting her love for mathematics on hold. But now, with her brother in medical school and her mother's health stable at last, Maya had finally dared to register for classes again. She found room 302 easily enough. Inside, the lecture hall buzzed with nervous energy. She slid into a seat 3 rows from the front, feeling instantly exposed among the youthful chatter and clatter of laptops. She kept her head down, but couldn't help noticing the girl in front of her, scrolling through calculus memes, the boy 2 seats over bragging about acing every math class since birth. Maya offered a small, invisible smile. She knew that kind of bravado. She'd once worn it herself. Moments later, the door slammed shut. A hush fell as Dr. Victor Hamlin entered, his footsteps purposeful, his reputation formidable. He moved like a man used to command, a gray suit, polished shoes, and a stare that could pierce through the most confident student. He surveyed the room, a hint of disdain curling his lip. "Welcome to Advanced Calculus 2, he intoned. "If you're here by mistake, now is the time to escape." A few nervous chuckles rippled across the seats. Maya kept her gaze on her notebook, her fingers tracing the soft edge of the cover. Dr. Hamlin launched into a torrent of symbols and logic, filling the board with impossibly neat equations. He spoke quickly, never repeating himself, testing the room's resolve. "Look to your left," he said coldly. "Look to your right. By midterms, one of you will be gone. This is not a place for passengers." As the weeks passed, Maya fell into a rhythm. She arrived early, left late, always found at the far corner of the library lost in pages of complex proofs. But the rumors began quickly. "Who is she? Isn't she too old to be a student? I heard she used to do payroll at the mill. Maybe she's just here for fun, like some kind of math tourist." Maya ignored the whispers. She had learned over years of invisibility how to let words slide off her. She studied in silence, occasionally solving problems on the library whiteboard late at night, her solutions erased before dawn. Sometimes students wandered in and stared at her elaborate calculations, shaking their heads as if she were an oddity. But one person took notice. Dr. Hamlin, never known for his patience, grew increasingly curious about the quiet woman in sensible shoes. He'd started watching Maya as she scribbled furiously in her battered notebook, lips moving in silent calculation. It bothered him, the way she rarely volunteered answers, but always seemed several steps ahead. One Monday, as the class struggled with a particularly dense proof on Green's theorem, Dr. Hamlin's eyes locked on Maya. "Ms. Rivers," he called, his voice echoing, "would you care to solve the boundary value problem on the board?" Every head turned. Maya felt a rush of heat to her cheeks, but she rose, gathering her thoughts. She approached the chalkboard, heart pounding. The problem was tough, a trick integration, an intentional trap. Dr. Hamlin leaned back, arms crossed, already anticipating her failure. Maya hesitated for only a moment before her hand began to move. She traced the standard method, paused, then took an unexpected path. A method she'd discovered years ago on her own, in the quiet of her kitchen, after everyone had gone to bed. The chalk squeaked, the steps unfolded, and slowly the board filled with her logic, unorthodox but seamless. Dr. Hamlin stepped forward. He studied the board, brow furrowing. He retraced her logic, line by line. For a moment, Maya wondered if she had made an error. But then, as the silence stretched, she saw it. Surprise flickered in his eyes. "Well," he said finally, "not the approach I would have chosen, but it works, efficient even." A ripple of whispers and admiration ran through the class. Maya returned to her seat, her heart pounding with relief and pride. After that day, things changed. Students began to watch her differently, some with respect, some with jealousy. A few started seeking her out after class, awkwardly asking for help on homework, surprised at how generously she explained the material. But Dr. Hamlin's interest sharpened into something more pointed. His questions for Maya grew harder. Sometimes he'd dismiss her ideas, challenging her at every turn. "Interesting, Ms. Rivers, but do you understand why your method works, or did you just get lucky?" She answered every challenge with quiet certainty. One evening, as she packed up in the library, an older woman with a cascade of silver hair sat beside her. "I've seen your work," the woman said. "I'm Dr. Singh, differential equations. I hope Dr. Hamlin is treating you fairly." Maya smiled. "He's thorough." Dr. Singh laughed, then handed her a flyer. "There's a faculty colloquium next week. Graduate students sometimes attend. You should come. Some people need to see what you're capable of." Maya hesitated, torn between the comfort of anonymity and the lure of possibility. "Thank you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I think I might." As the weeks rolled on, Maya's reputation grew. She still dressed plainly, still took the back stairwell to avoid crowds, but her confidence swelled. For years, she'd wondered if she'd missed her chance, if life had closed the door on her dreams. But now, as her solution stayed up on the chalkboard long after class had ended, she realized something important. You are never too old to begin again, and sometimes the world needs exactly what only you, yes, you, can bring. The autumn days passed, sunlight slanting through the ancient windows of Harrington University and catching dust motes that seemed suspended in golden time. For Maya Rivers, each morning brought new routine, but the undercurrent of tension in Dr. Hamlin's class grew with every lecture. It was no longer just mathematics that was at stake. Something else was brewing, a silent test of wills, a chess match of intellects that only a few students even noticed. Whispers trailed after Maya now, like the faint scent of rain on stone. "She's the one Dr. Hamlin keeps calling on. Did you see her solution yesterday? That wasn't even in the textbook. I bet she's some kind of prodigy who failed out and came back." Maya tried to ignore the talk, but it pressed at her all the same. In her private world, mathematics had always been a refuge. Now it was also a stage. After that first public challenge, Dr. Hamlin's attention sharpened. Every class, he seemed to devise new ways to test her resolve. Sometimes it was a problem with no obvious answer. Other times it was an old theorem, twisted just enough to demand original thinking. He would call her name, "Ms. Rivers," in that cool, clipped tone, and the room would fall silent, waiting for her to stumble. But Maya did not stumble. She studied harder, staying up late into the night. At home, she transformed her tiny kitchen table into a paper-strewn battlefield, equations scrawled on napkins, sticky notes blossoming across the walls. The old hunger returned, the thrill of chasing a problem to its core, of finding an elegant solution where others saw only chaos. One Thursday afternoon, after a particularly tense class, Mia was approached by a group of students. Emma, the calculus meme aficionado, was at the front, eyes wide behind oversized glasses. Hey, Maya, right? We have a study group on Wednesdays. You, um, you don't have to join, but honestly, we could really use you. Maya hesitated, unused to being needed by anyone in this new world. I'd like that, she said, and Emma's relief was palpable. The first time Maya joined them, the group was skeptical. Most had assumed she'd show off or dominate the conversation, but Maya listened. She explained complex concepts in ways that made sense. She didn't laugh at mistakes. Gradually, their walls dropped. Raj, the bragger from the first day, admitted he'd never understood Laplace transforms until Maya sketched it out using colored pens and a pizza analogy. The study sessions became the highlight of Maya's week. For the first time in years, she felt like she belonged. But Dr. Hamlin was not so easily impressed. His questions grew sharper, his challenges more public. Sometimes his voice carried a note of sarcasm. Perhaps Ms. Rivers can enlighten us with her unorthodox methods once again. Each time Maya answered, her nerves icy but her logic impeccable. After class, students began to look at Dr. Hamlin with something like suspicion. Was he really trying to teach or just trying to break her? One rainy evening, as Maya was packing her things, Dr. Singh found her again. Have you thought about the faculty colloquium? I'm not sure I belong there, Maya confessed. Nonsense, Dr. Singh smiled. Colloquiums are for ideas, not egos. Some of us need to be reminded of that, including Dr. Hamlin. Will you come? Maya hesitated, but Dr. Singh pressed a hand to hers. If you want to be seen for who you are, sometimes you have to step out of the shadows. On the day of the colloquium, Maya arrived early and sat in the back, notebook on her lap, knees bouncing with nerves. Most of the audience was made up of graduate students and professors. Dr. Hamlin was set to present last. When he arrived, the room buzzed. His reputation preceded him everywhere. His talk was, as always, technically flawless. Applications of multivariable integration in modern physics. The room was rapt. But Maya's practiced eye caught something, an unnecessary complexity in one of his proofs. It wasn't wrong, but there was a better way. She hesitated, heart pounding. Should she say anything? Was it even her place? At the break, Dr. Singh found her and nudged her forward. If you see something, you should share it. No one's going to hand you the floor. Sometimes you have to take it. So, after the next session, Maya approached Dr. Hamlin as he held court with a circle of eager grad students. Excuse me, Dr. Hamlin, she said softly. I had a thought about your integration sequence. It might be possible to simplify it. Dr. Hamlin's eyes narrowed. Is that so? I suppose you'd like to show us how. His tone was sharp, dismissive, but Maya stood her ground. If there's a chalkboard available, I'd be happy to try. The group fell silent. Dr. Singh, ever the quiet ally, quickly found an empty board. Maya's hands shook as she drew out her alternative. She explained each step, methodically, never boasting, just demonstrating. At first, the graduate students looked skeptical, but as she eliminated step after step, arriving at the answer in half the time, they began to nod, then to murmur. When she finished, Maya stepped back. The silence was deafening. Dr. Hamlin scrutinized the board. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then very quietly, he murmured, Well, it seems there are other ways. Not bad, Ms. Rivers. Not bad at all. For the first time, his voice held no sarcasm. After that day, the whispers about Maya changed. Did you see how she handled Dr. Hamlin? She's the real deal. Think she's published anything? But Maya remained humble. She returned to her study group, who now treated her with a mixture of awe and gratitude. She helped Emma prepare for a test. She walked Raj through his mistakes, never mocking, always patient. Yet for all the progress, Maya still felt the old doubt gnawing at her. Late at night, she replayed every challenge, every sideways look, every time Dr. Hamlin had tried to catch her out. She wondered if she'd ever be more than the older student, the curiosity, the one who didn't quite belong. One night, her phone buzzed with a message from Dr. Singh. Proud of you. Colloquium opened a lot of eyes. Next step, let them see what you're really capable of. That was the thing Maya feared most. Her biggest secret wasn't just that she was good at calculus. It was that, in the quiet of her old life, She had spent years working through advanced problems, writing solutions, even submitting papers to journals under a pseudonym. A handful had been published, but she'd never dared claim them. Not without a degree, not in a world that demanded credentials for brilliance. But the walls were thinning now. In Dr. Hamlin's next class, he paused at the end of a long proof and addressed her, not with condescension, but with cautious respect. Ms. Rivers, would you care to suggest an alternative here? Your insight at the colloquium was enlightening. The class watched, holding their breath. Maya approached the board, chalk in hand, and explained her method. This time, as she finished, Dr. Hamlin nodded slowly. Well reasoned, thank you. It was a small victory, but Maya savored it. Later, as she left the building in the rain, Maya allowed herself to hope. Maybe, just maybe, this was her time. But far greater challenges lay ahead. The academic world was waking up to her talent, but not everyone would welcome her presence. In the weeks to come, Maya would be asked to prove herself again. Not just to Dr. Hamlin, but to the entire faculty. Her courage would be tested, her past would come back to haunt her, and the decision to finally step into the light would carry consequences she could never have predicted. Yet as the autumn leaves swirled around her, Maya Rivers walked home with her head held high for the first time in years. The world had tried to keep her invisible, but she was done hiding, and the next move was hers. The turning leaves outside Harrington University glowed orange and gold, the seasons shifting almost imperceptibly as weeks slipped past. For Maya Rivers, life had become a blur of class notes, late-night study groups, and cautious hope. The calculus world inside room 302 was changing, and so was Maya. She no longer rushed out at the end of each lecture, shrinking from whispers or suspicious glances. Instead, she found herself surrounded by students eager for her help, young voices asking, "How did you see that pattern?" Or, "Can you explain your shortcut again?" Maya's humility and clarity made her a magnet, and gradually even those who dismissed her at first began to see her differently. But with new attention came new scrutiny. Dr. Hamlin's challenges shifted, no longer just attempts to trip her up, but invitations to truly debate, to test the boundaries of the material and even, occasionally, of his own authority. "Ms. Rivers," he said one Wednesday, gesturing to the blackboard crowded with complex integrals, "since you seem to enjoy alternatives, how would you approach this?" She stepped forward, hands steady, voice clear. "I'd begin by changing the order of integration, then—" She paused, glancing at the class, inviting them in. "Actually, I'd like to show you all why it works this way. Anyone want to try with me?" For a moment, the room was silent, but then Raj grinned, stood up, and took the chalk. Together, they broke the problem apart, rebuilding it in front of the class until the once daunting integral yielded to their teamwork. By the end of the hour, Dr. Hamlin simply nodded. "Well done," he said. No sarcasm, no hidden barb. It was a small moment, but it reverberated through the department. After class, Emma caught up to Maya. "You know, you could totally be a professor," she said, a little breathless. "Like, right now. You explain things better than anyone I've had." Maya laughed, but the comment lingered. For the first time, she let herself imagine it, standing at the front, teaching, being respected, not just for surviving, but for her mind. Yet not everyone was ready to welcome her into the academic fold. That week, rumors surfaced. Isn't she too old? She must have failed before. Why else would she come back now? Maybe she's cheating. Nobody's that good after all those years away. Maya tried to ignore them, but late at night, the words grew teeth. Sometimes she wondered if her secret was about to be exposed. Her pseudonymous papers, the ones published as E.R. Stanton, were her greatest pride and deepest fear. She'd always believed that in this world, knowledge mattered less than pedigree, that only those with the right credentials would ever be truly accepted. One Friday, a notice went up. Departmental Colloquium, open problem session, all students and faculty invited. Special focus, innovative approaches in modern calculus. Dr. Singh cornered Maya after class, a mischievous glint in her eye. "You should present. Show them what you're made of." Maya hesitated. "I'm not even a grad student yet." "All the more reason," Dr. Singh replied. "The best revolutions start outside the system." Maya spent the weekend agonizing over the decision. By Sunday night, she'd convinced herself to try. She chose a problem, one that had stumped her years before, and that she'd finally solved in a fit of inspiration at 2 a.m. Her method was unlike any she'd seen published. She rehearsed her explanation, rewriting it until every line was clear and every step logical. On the day of the colloquium, the lecture hall buzzed with anticipation. Faculty filled the front rows, students crowded the back, notebooks open and ready. Dr. Hamlin watched Maya with an inscrutable expression. Ladies and gentlemen, our next presenter is Maya Rivers. She will be sharing a novel approach to the evaluation of multivariable limits. Maya's heart hammered, but she steadied herself. Thank you, she began. This is a problem I struggled with for years. The standard methods never quite worked for me. But sometimes coming back with fresh eyes lets you see what others miss. She launched into her presentation, moving from whiteboard to projector and back, showing each step, anticipating every objection. As she built her proof, the room shifted, from skepticism to curiosity to open fascination. She showed where the standard approach stalled, then how her method untangled the mess with surprising clarity. And so, she concluded, by considering the symmetry of the domain and reframing the boundary conditions, we reduced the computation from 9 steps to 4. There was silence, a deep, awed quiet. Then Dr. Hamlin spoke. Where did you learn this? Maya swallowed. I worked it out myself years ago. I've always loved puzzles. Dr. Singh smiled. And she's published too. Maybe some of you have read E.R. Stanton's work in the Journal of Mathematical Analysis? A ripple went through the audience. Dr. Hamlin's eyes narrowed. You're Stanton? Maya nodded, voice soft but firm. Yes, I published under a pseudonym because I didn't think anyone would listen to a factory bookkeeper without a degree. A low murmur spread. Several students gaped. One professor, Dr. Klein, blurted, I taught an entire unit based on your paper last year. And I used your transformation in my thesis, another grad student said. The applause started hesitantly, then grew into a standing ovation. Maya stood at the board, breathless, fighting tears. Years of hiding, of shrinking herself, had just burned away in a single afternoon. After the session, Dr. Hamlin approached her, not as a skeptic, but as a colleague. I owe you an apology, Ms. Rivers. Or perhaps Mrs. Stanton. She managed a small smile. Maya is fine. He nodded, taking her hand. You remind us why mathematics matters, not just as a science, but as an art. I hope you'll let me read your next paper. Other faculty lined up to introduce themselves. Students asked for advice, begged her to join their groups, even asked for mentorship. Dr. Singh squeezed her shoulder, beaming. Walking home, Maya could barely process what had happened. She wasn't invisible anymore. Her mind, her work, had finally found their audience. The doors that once seemed locked were now opening. But with recognition came responsibility. The department chair invited her to help design a new curriculum. Dr. Singh suggested she apply for graduate school immediately, waiving the usual requirements. Dr. Hamlin, in a gesture of humility, offered to serve as her advisor. That night, Maya stood by her window, watching the rain streak glass, and allowed herself at last to dream, no longer in secret, but with the world watching. The second act of her life had begun. Yet she knew, deep down, that her greatest challenge and her greatest triumph were still to come. For genius, once revealed, can never be hidden again. And sometimes the quietest voice can change everything. The weeks after Maya's revelation unfolded like a dream that belonged to someone else. Suddenly, the halls of Harrington University were filled with faces that turned to her, not away. Professors stopped her to talk shop about boundary conditions or ask her opinion on a recent mathematical controversy. Students flocked to her after class, eager for advice or help on assignments. More than once, she found herself called Professor Rivers by mistake, and every time she felt a small thrill, followed by the familiar pinch of doubt. Did she really belong here, among them, now that her secret was out? But it was Dr. Hamlin's transformation that surprised her most. No longer adversarial, he became almost collegial. His questions now came with a glint of curiosity, not malice. At times, he even deferred to her during lectures. When a particularly gnarly integral stumped half the class, he turned to Maya. "Ms. Rivers, what do you see that we're missing?" She would step forward, explaining her reasoning clearly, always quick to credit the students who tried first. The chalk in her hand felt lighter now, like a wand conjuring answers from thin air. One chilly afternoon, Dr. Hamlin approached her after class. He held a folder of her published work, papers that had, until recently, only been attributed to E.R. Stanton. "I spent the weekend reading these," he admitted. "You know, I once dismissed the Stanton papers as clever but naive. Now I see they were years ahead of their time." Maya smiled softly. "Sometimes when you're outside the system, you can see things others can't." He nodded, then surprised her. "I want to propose something radical. Will you co-teach the next calculus seminar with me? Not as a student, as my equal." Maya's breath caught. For a moment she felt the old urge to refuse, to step back into the shadows. But then she remembered the applause, the students' faces, her own promise to herself to stop hiding. "I'd be honored," she said, voice steady. Word of Maya's new role spread quickly. There was some pushback, faculty who grumbled that she was skipping steps, students who resented her sudden rise. But as the weeks went by, most were won over by her humility and clarity, and by the results. Test scores rose, students engaged more deeply, and the seminar became so popular that it moved to a larger lecture hall. On the first day of the seminar, Maya stood before a room packed with undergraduates, graduates, and even a few professors. Dr. Hamlin gave her the floor. She began not with an equation, but a story. "When I was 12, she said, I tried to solve a problem that everyone told me was too advanced. I struggled for months, but I realized something important. When you approach a problem with fresh eyes, when you don't know what's impossible, you sometimes find a new solution. That's what I want for all of you, to believe that you might see what others don't." Her approach was hands-on. She encouraged students to work in groups, to argue, to try wild ideas. When they got stuck, she didn't swoop in with the answer. Instead, she asked questions that nudged them just enough to see a new path. More than once, Dr. Hamlin marveled at how quickly the room's energy shifted under her guidance, curiosity sparking like static in the air. Outside the classroom, Maya found herself busier than ever. She was asked to consult on the curriculum redesign. Dr. Singh nominated her for a departmental award usually reserved for faculty. A publisher reached out, requesting a textbook proposal in her own name. Late at night, she would sit by her window with a cup of tea looking at the city lights, letting the enormity of it all settle over her. She thought of the years spent in the mill, her brother's worried face as he left for college, her mother's soft encouragement. She thought of the kitchen table, covered in papers and dreams. And now here she was, making a mark she'd once thought was forever lost to her. But not everyone accepted the changes gracefully. At a faculty meeting, Professor Lindstrom, a stern traditionalist, raised a pointed question. "Are we really to let someone without a PhD or formal teaching background instruct our brightest students? Are we setting a precedent that credentials no longer matter?" A tense silence followed. Maya braced herself for embarrassment. But then Dr. Singh, always her ally, spoke. "We're not discarding credentials. We're recognizing achievement. Genius is rare enough. We'd be foolish not to nurture it when it's right here among us." Dr. Hamlin added, "If you want proof of Ms. Rivers' impact, look at her students. They're thriving. That's what matters most." The motion to confirm Maya's new role passed by a narrow margin, but it passed. "Afterward, Doctor." Singh found her in the hallway. "Don't let the doubters get to you. They'll come around. Keep showing them who you are." Maya smiled, a little teary. "Thank you. For everything." The semester rushed toward its end. The calculus seminar was selected to represent the department at the annual university symposium. Maya and Dr. Hamlin spent long evenings refining their presentation, combining his expertise with her creative approaches. On the day of the symposium, they stood together before a packed auditorium. Maya opened with her favorite lesson. "The true beauty of mathematics is that it belongs to anyone with the curiosity to chase it." No matter where you come from, how old you are, or what titles you hold, the numbers don't care. They reveal their secrets to anyone who dares to ask the right questions. The audience listened, rapt, as she and Dr. Hamlin walked through problem after problem, each solution an invitation to think differently. When the applause came, it was thunderous, and afterward, students and faculty from other universities lined up to talk to Maya, to ask for copies of her notes, to invite her to visit their own campuses. That evening, as the stars appeared over the city, Maya lingered on the steps of the mathematics building. For so long, she had thought of herself as an outsider, a woman standing in the shadows of greatness. Now she understood. She'd been a light all along. She had simply needed the courage to step forward. Her phone buzzed, a message from her brother, now a young doctor. Watch the live stream. So proud. Mom would be too. She blinked back happy tears, feeling the presence of her family, the years of quiet sacrifice finally bearing fruit. As the semester drew to a close, Maya found herself reflecting on everything that had changed. Her classmates had become friends. Her professors, once intimidating, now treated her as a peer. Most of all, she had finally found her voice, a voice that would not be silenced or dismissed again. But even as new opportunities beckoned, a book contract, invitations to speak, the chance to pursue a graduate degree, Maya knew that the greatest lesson she could offer her students was this: it's never too late to begin again. Genius is not about age or status or the number of diplomas on your wall. It's about passion, persistence, and the willingness to try, fail, and try again. And in the quiet of the empty lecture hall, as she gathered her things, Maya Rivers looked at the chalkboard one last time, smiled, and knew, with a certainty as clear as any equation, that she belonged. Winter swept across Harrington University, dusting the quad with snow and turning the old mathematics building into a beacon of golden light against the early dusk. The semester was winding down, and for Maya Rivers, every day felt like stepping into a new world, one that she was still learning to claim as her own. Her days were a whirl of activity, grading for the seminar, helping undergraduates untangle knotty equations, consulting on the curriculum redesign, and answering emails from professors across the country who wanted to learn about her methods. She even recorded a guest lecture for a university on the other side of the world, her voice, once so timid, now reaching places she had never dreamed. But with success came the familiar anxiety, the fear that it could all be taken away, that the gatekeepers of academia would change their minds, that some bureaucratic rule would surface and bar her from the life she had only just begun. There were rumors of new policy reviews, quiet discussions among senior faculty, talk of making sure standards are upheld. Maya knew she could not control these things. All she could do was keep showing up, keep helping students, and keep letting her work speak for itself. The students, however, never doubted her. They showed up to her office hours in droves. Some came for calculus, others for advice, and a few simply to thank her for making them feel seen. "I failed math twice before," one first-year student confided. "You made me feel like I could do it, like maybe I wasn't stupid after all." Maya smiled and squeezed the girl's hand. "You're not. Never let anyone, especially not yourself, convince you otherwise." The faculty, too, changed. Dr. Hamlin became her fiercest ally, defending her qualifications at every meeting. Dr. Singh lobbied for her to receive a special fellowship, while Professor Lindstrom, once her harshest critic, invited her to collaborate on a new research project. The department was evolving, reshaped by the simple truth that genius and compassion do not always arrive in the expected package. But perhaps the most remarkable shift was within Maya herself. She had always believed that belonging was something granted by others, a door that must be unlocked from the outside. Now she understood that true belonging came from within, from the decision to stand, to speak, to keep showing up even when your hands are shaking. As the final seminar of the term approached, Maya and Dr. Hamlin prepared something special. "We've done enough theorems," Maya said with a sly grin. "Let's end with a question no one expects." So on the last day, they wrote this on the board: "What problem in mathematics would you solve if you knew you couldn't fail?" The room fell silent as students pondered the invitation. One by one, hands went up. Not just with answers, but with stories, fears, hopes, dreams. Some wanted to tackle unsolved conjectures. Others wanted to use math to solve real-world crises. Climate change, disease, poverty. Maya listened, heart swelling. This was what she had always wanted, to create a space where curiosity was more important than credentials, where students felt empowered to ask their own questions. At the close, Dr. Hamlin turned to her in front of everyone. "There's a tradition at Harrington," he said, "that the final word in the seminar belongs to the person who's made the biggest difference. This year, that's not me. It's Maya Rivers." A hush fell. Maya stood, her voice steady but her hands trembling. "I used to believe that doors only open for certain people, that if you don't have the right background, or the right degree, or the right look, you don't get a seat at the table. I spent half my life waiting for permission to be who I am." She looked around at the faces. Students, professors, friends. "But the truth is, sometimes you have to build your own table. Sometimes you have to be your own proof." She paused, a smile breaking through. "If you take anything from this class, I hope it's this. Don't let anyone else define your limits. The world needs your questions, your mistakes, your wild ideas. That's how new mathematics gets made. That's how the future changes." The room erupted in applause, sustained, thunderous, the kind that makes your whole life flash before your eyes. Maya blinked back tears. Afterwards, students lined up to thank her. Some handed her handwritten notes. Others just hugged her, awkwardly and fiercely. Dr. Hamlin shook her hand, holding it just a moment longer than necessary, his voice thick with emotion. "You taught me more this term than I've learned in years," he said. "Thank you." The university president attended the symposium where Maya and Dr. Hamlin presented together. Word of Maya's story, her late return to study, her secret years of anonymous research, her transformation from invisible student to beloved teacher, spread across campus, then across the city, then far beyond. Journalists came calling. Conference invitations arrived from as far as Europe and Asia. Through it all, Maya kept her routine simple. She visited her mother, now proud and beaming. She called her brother every Sunday. She baked bread on the weekends, just as she had in the days when life was smaller. Her apartment was still modest, her wardrobe unchanged, but the world she moved through was infinitely bigger. One afternoon, a small group of high school girls from the city's poorest neighborhood appeared at her office door. "We heard your story," the tallest said shyly. "We want to study math, but no one believes in us." Maya invited them in. She shared her favorite proofs, her old notebooks, her time. When they left, she pressed into their hands a copy of her own first published paper, signed with a note. "Brilliance has no expiration date. You are enough. Keep going." The winter gave way to spring. The department appointed Maya as an adjunct lecturer, the first in Harrington history without a traditional degree, but with a portfolio that inspired hundreds. Her book went to print, titled The Beauty of Second Chances. On the dedication page, "For anyone who's ever been told it's too late, it's not." And when, at the year's closing ceremony, the dean asked her to give the keynote address, Maya stood before the gathered crowd, students, faculty, family, strangers, and told her story, not as a tale of overcoming odds, but as a lesson in possibility. We are all at some point underestimated, by others, by the world, by ourselves. But the truth is, the proof of belonging is not found in a diploma, or a title, or someone else's approval. It's found in the quiet persistence of showing up, again and again, until the world has no choice but to see you. Her words echoed in the hall, a final theorem. Brilliance belongs to those who claim it. The future is written by the hands that dare to solve its hardest problems. The applause that followed was not just for Maya, but for everyone who had ever sat quietly at the back of the room, waiting for their moment, for everyone who had dared to begin again. And as Maya Rivers walked out into the sunlight, she knew finally and completely that she was exactly where she belonged.